up, family? It's your girl, Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne, the General.
And this is TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
Formerly known as street politicians. New name,
Same us. I like that. I like that.
I'm in the struggle of my life.
What is that? Struggle of your life?
It's the struggle of my entire life. Never in my life have I experienced this type of struggle.
And what is that?
Well, I decided that I will no longer perm my hair.
And what made you come to that conclusion?
And so all of the inside of my head hasn't been permed in, 10 years. But around the edges and in the top part, which is what they call the coverage for your weave,
okay.
I've always put a little bit of texturizer, which is the same thing as a perm, but it sounds a little bit better.
Texturizer.
To just make sure it lays down, because when you sweat, and I sweat when I sleep. I don't sweat when I work out, which is crazy, but when I sleep, I sweat. And certain things you do, the summertime, different activities, and just wear and tear, it starts to get all crazy, and you gotta brush it. And I don't know how to do anything related to hair. I can't do anything. I can make one cornrow. That's it. I do not know how to do hair.
One cornrow, wow.
Yeah, I literally can only make one cornrow. I will never forget.
Somebody that's always talking about hair, that don't know how to do one thing.
I don't know. When I say don't know how to do anything, I was Miss Diddy, our friend. She was just telling me the other day, like, bro, you don't need perm. You need to learn how to do your edges. Edges, first of all, edge control. I'm looking for. I use my L. It's a little green bottle. I do, and it works a little bit better. But it might just be me, because I have like coarse hair that my edges I don't do well. Other people, I see it between Miss Diddy and Jennifer Williams and all these people. They be slicking it down and it be all cute. It doesn't work for me like that. So I'm not good at doing any of that. So that's why I need my little texturizer, because then it just kind of lays down all the time. But now I'm going natural, and I did this. I made this decision because I was riding in the car with Ben Crump. You may or may not have been there. You may not have been there. But I was riding in the car with Ben Crump one day, and I was like, because he's suing a company that has perm, right? Okay. And so I was asking him, like, since you started suing them, and since this lawsuit is in progress, have they changed the formula of the perm? Because obviously they know that people have definitely, the research is clear. Like, there is a clear connection between the perm and people who have cancer, different types of cancers that has developed, right? So I asked him, have they changed the formula? And he was like, well, no, it's the same formula, because if they change the formula, it's like admitting guilt, right? So why would you do that in the middle of a legal battle? Maybe some things have changed, because as a company goes on, they do little things. But in terms of really, really, really making sure that it's not harmful to people, no, it hasn't been done. And he was like, you're not putting that stuff in your hair, are you? And I was sitting there like, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, how long ago was this?
It's been, he probably said this to me like over a year ago.
And you just coming to the conclusion?
Well, what I didn't just come to the conclusion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah. Well, no. What happened was, all summer I wore my hair basically in braids to allow for the perm to grow out. So I did that the whole summer. Then I got back into, putting my hair, I like my tresses every now and then. I like my little hair, you see her, I like that. So then when I got back into wearing my hair, it was really bad, because as soon as I take my braids out, I immediately put a little texturizer, do my weave, and, whatever. And I didn't. So when it came to holiday time, beginning right before Thanksgiving, I was like, bruh, take it all out. Shout out to Delasia, my hair braider, and Alicia, my hairstylist. They figured it out. They made me look good. But then it was like, okay, now it's out, and I got to go back to my other hairstyle. And I don't know how to do that without a perm. So in November, Thanksgiving time, I put the braids back in my hair, and I held on to them for as long as I can, but I can't. So now I'm like, you got to start the process, all right? You just got to. So here I am.
So here you are. So
and it's bad.
It's rough. It's rough.
Oh my God! This morning I was. Ooh, it was bad. The struggle is real. But they say
that's
that
fine to me.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. They say that it trains itself after a while. But, to all the sisters that's out there, actually, we're going to do a little bit more on this topic because Cascade Productions, our production team, has been involved with reporting and organizing around the lawsuits and looking at the victims of, people who have actually been
So what
affected.
is exactly is happening to people, to the women?
For the most part, the cancer is something that has to do with their reproductive system.
That's crazy.
However, there have been other signs, like other cancers, like, lymph node cancers and things like that. And it seems to be connected to the creamy crack, as they call it. This is something we started when we were really young. It was a tool that was given to people to help deal with managing coarse hair for kids, for this, that, and the third. And, it's just, it's never been good for us. And people have moved away from it, but
it's so much things.
I love a little good perm.
The crazy thing is that when we just look at our society, a lot of things that's good to us is not good for us.
Absolutely.
And we indulge and overindulge in all those things, and then by the time we get a certain age, it really starts to affect you.
Yeah.
Right? It's literally killing you. A lot of the stuff that we have, food and sugar and all of the stuff that we love to death. And a snack, you're a kid, the first thing, let me get a snack, and you want a snack. And those things are literally killing you.
I love sugar.
I know.
I love, sugar.
Who doesn't love sugar?
No. It's different for me. I love sugar so bad. And they were telling me that my granddaughter found a little bag of candy. Now, she's only 16 months old, so she don't know nothing about a lot of things, but you think kids don't know. She found her some kind of way, got the candy, and they said she was just quiet, and they looked, and she was tearing that candy up, eating paper and everything, just as sweet and good. I love sugar.
Sugar is a thing, because a little cake here and there, you know what I'm saying, a little Swedish fish, or I'm addicted to those things. So I have to stop. In my process, I've been doing a lot of working out and trying to change my diet and just eat better because we ain't no spring chicken.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
So
you a little whatever.
Yeah.
I'm a little more spring than you, just so you know.
Okay,
but,
whatever. But you push it, you getting it. You know what I'm saying? So the reality is we have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Went to my checkup and she was like, "You're very healthy, but these are things you need to do. You need to eat more antioxidants and blueberries and fiber, all the little things that you got to take care of." So I'm very, very conscious and intentional about those things.
I had a physical, I don't know, some months ago, and what they found immediately was related to sugar intake. It was so clear. It was the sugar intake, and then also I don't like to use the bathroom while I'm outside, so I will leave my house. And look, I see folks shake. Look, everybody, the whole production team is like, word. I will leave my house at 9:00 in the morning and do everything in my power not to use the bathroom either until I get back or until I find some place that I really like. I'm like, let me run in Bloomingdale's real quick and try to go to the floor where they have the stylists and stuff and use that bathroom. Like, this is a real problem because, by the way, people be nasty. Nasty. I don't know what's up with the girls' bathroom, but we have to do better, sisters. Better.
The men's bathroom ain't much better.
Yeah, but I've been in some men's bathrooms. When I gotta go, I'm going in whatever bathroom is available. So that's that. And no, you can't do it. Yes, it's definitely hypocritical, double standard, whatever you want to call it. So I don't want to drink nothing. And then, of course, you're not getting your proper water intake. So, first of all, let me make sure that shout out to our family, the Smiths, Jaden Smith. I drink water, just water, all day. And now I have to use the bathroom more often. And it's a new mindset that no matter what, you gotta go to the bathroom. Another thing in terms of me drinking my water, kidneys. Like, there was some stuff that they were like, hey, you need to watch this.
Yeah, kidneys are very important. And I think I drink too much water. Like, I drink water all day. I either drink water or liquor.
Right.
So
there's
no
I was about to say, because I don't drink nothing all day, but when it comes time for cocktails in the evening, I'm on it.
That's what it is. I don't drink liquor all the time, but that's the things I do. I try not to drink a lot of juice. with the exception of like orange juice for breakfast sometimes, or
say
apple juice.
the
And I don't drink
page from the Steve Harvey Foundation was like, why y'all drinking orange juice?
Yeah, I don't really drink a lot because I remember when I was incarcerated, I used to drink orange juice all the time, and I had built up like acid reflux, and you know what I'm saying, from drinking orange juice all the time. So I started, and I had like little kidney stones from drinking a lot of acid too.
I don't even have orange juice in my refrigerator.
Yeah, I mean, I drink it.
What's in your refrigerator to drink?
I drink, it's nothing. It's water, and well, it's some soda in there that I don't really drink. But I had it from the Super Bowl party that nobody drank, so it was like 2 liters. Nobody was drinking soda. But it was for the mixtures for looking little drinks.
Wherever you
I went to the Dollar Tree. I got me some.
That's why nobody had
3 liters.
People like real Pepsi,
man,
real Coke,
shop at the Dollar Tree.
Man,
listen to me. I had some Pepsi. So let me tell you something. This is free promo. The Dollar Tree is the best store I've ever been to.
I can't believe you. Nobody wants that stuff.
Listen to what I'm telling you. The Dollar Tree is the best place to shop. I went there and I brought boxes and stuff for about $60. Listen to me. Any other store I go to, they give you a little brown paper bag this big, and it's $100 worth of stuff in it. You go to the Dollar Tree, they literally got boxes of stuff that you can take. Everything is $1.25. It's the best. Like I said, the Dollar Tree is my store.
What else is in your refrigerator?
So what else is in there? Fruits, vegetables. I got like cabbage and you know, I'm trying to be healthy. It's like a watermelon. Yeah. You know.
My refrigerator has sparkling water, San Pellegrino, that's the one I like. Just water. My refrigerator is full of just water. I still keep 0% milk in my refrigerator. I know people say
I got almond milk.
You drink almond milk. Okay, so I still keep 0% milk in my refrigerator. What else is in it? My snack that I make for myself is cucumbers, tomatoes, and what's the other one? And onions, red onions. That's what I make as a snack for when I get hungry, or watermelon, different fruits. And I've been trying to use Bragg's, which is supposed to be really good in terms of dressing, Italian dressing or whatever from Bragg's, but it has nothing. A girlfriend of mine, Jamie, my best friend, she studied to be a chef. So she knows a lot about foods and different things and labels. Italian dressing is highly caloric. Highly caloric. Like, it's like actually not good. So I cut it with the Bragg's. So I'm doing better, but I'm not all the way there yet.
It's a process.
Checking labels. Labels are very important. If you actually read something, what you're putting in your body, what you're putting in your mind, if you read the content, if you really get to understand it, some things you might not
even take it
at all. Because once I read like some of the labels for a few things, the sugar, the amount of sugar that's in, it's like, whoa! I'm actually, and by the way, they tell you when you go to the doctor, and in other places you can look it up online, exactly how much sugar and certain things, calories, cholesterol, whatever, how much is okay for each person. And trust and believe, it's like nothing. But most of the products that we use has 10 times that in it. So if you read the labels, it will turn you off from some of the products and some of the things that we actually consume. So anyway, brings me to my thought of the day, because reading is not fundamental for some people.
Oh, really?
Let me just tell you.
Wow, that's the new.
We should really start saying reading is not fundamental for some people. I am so proud of myself that I've moved to a space in my life now where I can post something or get into a dialogue with people, and they can be crazy, screaming up on, just going crazy. And I really get me some good rest. Like, after I say what I have to say, I'm fine. Because I realize we're not going to all agree, especially around this election. And then, a few weeks ago, the post that I put up, I reposted something from Chris Brown, and that was like several days of back and forth. And I have really been able to see how much people don't read. They are willfully ignorant. But I willfully,
believe
doesn't that mean that you like kind of intentionally ignorant? But some people are just don't.
No, because they don't want.
comprehend.
Because the thing is, when you are set on a point, you don't even want to read or get information that goes against that point.
Right.
So you willfully ignore that part, right? Because because a lot of people come to my page and I'd be like, did you actually do any
well,
research?
you have. It's a little different because you have people that I believe there's somebody. I'm really serious about this, and I really mean it. I truly believe that there is somebody that's paying people to troll you.
Oh, that's a definite.
I definitely believe that.
No,
I don't have it as bad as you.
No, it's a definite. It's not people just paying to troll. It's like they're doing things to stop.
Well, that's a different department.
Certain
that's
things.
a different
but
department.
But it's all of that because
that's the Instagram department.
Because what happens is I realize that the algorithm feeds just negativity on my page. Like they try to feed them. Like most positive posts I have with real posting, they don't push it no more. Like they only try to push negativity on my page.
What I will say though is when we look at the demographics of my page and yours, Black men are your majority followers, and Black women are my majority followers. And there's something to be said about the ways in which Black men respond to information. It's very diverse for a lot of different reasons, but it's something to be said about how, for the most part, and I get torn up by Black women all the time. Black women, white women, green women, blue women, they get in my ass. And some of the Black men come and they tear me up too. But on your page, for the most part,
pause. So, Black women get in your ass. Mason can would have paused you.
My mama used to say, don't make me get in your ass. And she definitely wasn't talking about no pause. And if I would have said pause to her, she would have got in it a little bit more. So,
hey,
that's a whole other thing. But okay. So, they criticize me. Let's just get, so they criticize me. And, but on your page, the criticism it's like deep. It's deep. I mean, it's like they go to your page and it doesn't matter. If you put up a picture, outside of you posting your children or something like that, okay, cool. For the most part, it's cool. But if you post good morning, they like, oh, what about this and why that and you look like this and you did that. So this is like
it's
intentional.
Very intentional. Very, very.
And I wonder why it is.
It's a lot of fake profiles, but it's also that it's people who they utilize this as just their only voice. Like some of these people don't never go outside and they don't have no real interaction. So to be able to say negative things and get any response from somebody is okay for them because they actually live. Trolling is a real thing. So a lot of these people, they don't have like real social lives. They don't exist outside of the internet. I never forget it. Amanda Seals posted on my page, and she came in my DMs and was like, "I've never in my life." She said, "I've gone through a lot with my." She said, "This page is the most dramatic shit I've ever seen in my life."
People
traumatic.
don't even go to your
page.
They don't even. I don't go on there. I used to say I don't go on there.
Like, nah, I'm not going to your page because it makes you want to. My family be like, "Yo, I want to fight people on your page." And I'm like, "Nah, it's not that serious." So it's fun to me because I know how to engage because any point that I have, I can stand on whatever I say. So I don't mind engaging with somebody that has a different perspective than me. The new Freaknik movie is about to come out. And we in our TMI segment.
TMI.
Now
that's for real.
Now that's
TMI.
real TMI.
Too much
and I know it's a lot of parents. Listen, I was at a couple of Freakniks, I don't know if I'm in the footage but I know I was at a couple of Freakniks. And I know it's a lot of parents in a couple of Freakniks. And I know a lot of them don't want their kids to see them in a couple of them Freaknik movies and them little scenes in there because there's a lot going on in them scenes. Trust me. If you was outside during Freaknik and you was driving by in them cars in them streets, you seen some things that you couldn't unsee. You did some things. You either did some things or seen or both some things in them Freakniks. So is that TMI? Do you like what type of response you think that movie is gonna have? It's gonna have.
I think people are more concerned about their jobs and their husbands and I think the children piece, yes, that's important to them and they go, but you can talk to your kids. Your kids are like, oh my, I can't believe, oh my God, like depending on what type of kid you had.
You was
outside. Depending on what type of kid you had. But the job and when people build themselves up to be this like perfect person, that's why you should never do that. I say all the time, I'm imperfect as a mug. But people do that. They start, they're walking around. They are this sorority and that organization and the president of this and whatever. And they have such a squeaky clean image and don't want to tell people the truth about who they really are.
No, but for real, Freaknik was exactly that.
But that's how it shows that I'm more of a spring chicken than you.
Yeah,
because I never made it.
You didn't make it to Freaknik. Thank God.
I think it might be a little TMI, but people just gonna have to deal with it because
the things that you could just drive by in the middle of the street and see it Freaknik. Nobody pull out their camera phone and all that because people would see somebody with one camera all the way over there and they're like, I'll never see that person again. That's just gonna be his own personal. We didn't have the internet. It wasn't none of that.
The cameras captured some of it.
The cameras done got it, and now the internet is here, and now it's a movie. Listen to me.
Make sure you comment and tell us. Do you think it's TMI? Should the movie come
out?
Or
I hope they're covering these people's face a little bit. Talk to your husband now if you know that you was outside.
A lot of the Freaknik situation was about music, so you have something. What's next?
I do have something around music. And it's our new music segment that I will be highlighting, a lot of artists who have dope music, either they're unknown artists or some known artists, but I think the songs have so much substance and are telling so much of a story that they don't really get the highlight that they need. So this new music segment we have is called our Real Music Spotlight. And today's artist is an artist by the name of Yellow Pain. And the name of the song is called My Vote Don't Count. And in this song, he brilliantly breaks down the branches of government, right? And he talks about how, since we are in voting, we're in the election season, and he talks about how certain votes he doesn't believe are more important than other votes. And he explains to you how you think this branch of government does this, but they actually don't do that. And he tells you the power of the president, what he actually can do, and he tells you the local people that you should be voting on. And he breaks it down so brilliantly, and I think people need to listen to this because there's so much misinformation about who does what. And president ain't do this, and that person ain't do this, and I don't know why we even voting for this. You need to understand what you're voting for and who you're voting for and what they actually can do. So, Yellow Pain, I just want to shout you out. Make sure that you go listen to the song, the video. It's on YouTube. It's called My Vote Don't Count. It's a dope song.
Yellow Pain.
Yellow Pain.
Does he have other music?
He does have other music, but this one is
it's a big song.
It's a big song for me.
I love this track.
And I think people should go look him up. He's actually a dope artist. He has a lot of substance, because that's what I want to do this whole segment about, is artists with substance, and artists who have songs with substance, because there's a lot of artists who they only promote the ignorant songs, and they have 2 or 3 really dope songs that have substance that if you actually listen to, you can learn something that actually tells you a story that actually makes you actually connect to the artist. That's what I've always loved.
And this segment is called Real Music
Spotlight. We're going to spotlight real music in the Real Music Spotlight.
Yellow Pain.
My vote don't count. Here's a clip.
They don't want to see us vote, and we never do, so we see the same thing. But all our votes really do count, and they'll never really let it show. So now I'm finna break it down, cause if I don't, you would probably never know. So the Congress or the State House, that's legislative, they make laws. So what we want from the president is what they do, okay?
I like it. He's dope. I want to listen to some of his other music. On to other business. We have a strong, very, very, very important interview today. As you know, all of you who are out there who've been following us on social media, we are supporting the Justice for Pierre Rushing campaign. We've been trying to bring all the information possible to you about Pierre Rushing. This man was wrongfully convicted. He's serving a sentence that is unfair and unjust. And we want the system to work in his favor. We want a
He's
new
already
trial.
been in jail about 13 years, right?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. We want a new trial, and we want evidence to be re-examined, all of those things. And coming up right now is one of a major advocate for him and other wrongfully convicted individuals. It is Jason Flom. He's going to be talking about what is happening with Pierre right now. I think it was such a dope interview. Let's talk about it.
So we're going to go to this previously recorded interview with Jason Flom. Take a look.
So we are being joined today by a good friend of ours that we have begun to work with, or have been working with for a while, and through our initiative with Team Rock, which is Rock Nation's baby. It's philanthropy arm. Desiree Perez brought a lot of us together. When Jay did the deal with the NFL, it caused a lot of people to have concerns. I was one of those individuals. You were number two of those individuals, but they also made a commitment that a part of their efforts would be to bring a very diverse group of people together so that we can meet around a lot of issues and support one another. And I think the UJC, the United Justice Coalition, has done that. Being supportive, showing up for one another. And so Jason Flom is someone that I met through. Did we meet before that, Jason? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe we did.
Not, I said probably at the same
Maybe
time.
we did.
One of us is right.
One of you.
But I know exactly. But I do know for sure that through our work at UJC, we met Jason and have really begun to understand so much about what you do every day. Now, you start off, at least from my understanding, and not that begins your life, but a lot of people know you as having been the CEO of major record labels. So you were in the industry as a trailblazer, and I was mentioning to you off camera, we were talking about lack of diversity in leadership in the industry and how it impacts artists and their ability to have balance through their voice and what have you. And so then you just happen to be here today. And I think one of the things that makes you very different is the work that you do, the anti-racism work you do every day. That's what we know you for.
Oh, thank you. I hope that's what I will be known for. It's funny, I meet people now. Some people just come up to me, even a waiter at a restaurant I was eating at the other day comes up to me and goes, "You're the criminal justice guy, right?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, yeah. He says, "I saw you on Joe Rogan. I watched that episode so many times, and then I listened to your podcast, Wrongful Conviction. It got me through the pandemic, and I work in the warehouse." And so, I meet people these days who don't know that I've been in the music business my whole life, and that's okay with me. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I do for a living. I've been very, very lucky in my career, but the work that I've been doing now since 1993, helping to reform our system and get as many people out of prison as I possibly can and prevent as many from going in as I possibly can. That's
your legacy.
That's what's given meaning. It gives meaning to my days. I get up thinking about it. I go to sleep thinking about it, and I think about it in between. And luckily, I'm in a position where I'm able to have an impact. And so that's what I do, and that's what I'm going to continue to do until my last breath.
And speaking of, sorry, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned, that speaking of impact, you are one of the founding board members of the Innocence Project, in which my son will speak to how much he's been working with members of the organization, just looking at cases around this country trying to get people free. And so we appreciate you for that. And now hosting your podcast, Wrongful Convictions, as you said, listen, you got your swag on today. And we want to get into that.
No, I just want to know, how long have you been doing the podcast? How long has the podcast been?
Started it in 2016, so this is our 8th year.
Wow.
We're at over 70 million downloads now. We've gotten, we've helped to free quite a number of wrongfully convicted people, including Ronnie Long, who was just in the news the other day.
Wow.
After a huge settlement in North Carolina. I spoke to him. So happy for him. 44 years wrongfully convicted. He should get a huge settlement, but a lot of people don't. So each week we tell stories with the person who lived it. Sometimes I interview people on death row, or people that are still in prison serving life, people who've been in for decades. Other times I interview people who have been through that unreal ordeal and have come out the other side and are free. Because I think those stories are important to tell as well.
So what was the transition like? What going from a CEO to doing innocence and wrongful conviction work? Like, I don't even know how that happens. Like, what made you say, you know what, I don't want to do this. This is more of what I want to do. Like, what was that process?
Well, when I started, I was far from becoming a CEO. I was still just sort of a mid-level, A&R executive. But I saw a story in the newspaper that blew my mind. And it was the story of a kid who was serving 15 years to life on nonviolent first offense cocaine possession charge in a maximum security prison in New York State. And that was cocaine possession. And I was like, this cannot possibly be right. Like, I mean, I had my own issues with substance abuse as a kid, and I knew that if not for the color of my skin and the zip code I was born in or was raised in, I would have been in prison, 100%. So I was like, that could have been me. I ended up in rehab because that's where they sent kids like me, white kids that came from that area at that time. So I freaked out. I decided I had to do something about this. And so I didn't know anything about what I was doing, but I managed to get an attorney to take the case pro bono. I knew this guy because he represented 2 Hearthside signs, Stone Temple Pilots and Skid Row. They're getting arrested like weekly back then. So that's a slight exaggeration, but I got him to take the case pro bono. He said it was hopeless. This kid happened to be the same age as I was at the time, 32 years old. And he had been in for 8 years already and was serving the 15th to life, like I said, mandatory 15. And somehow or other, we ended up in a courtroom 6 months later in Malone, New York, up by the Canadian border. They bring this kid in shackles. I never forget that. His legs were chained together. I was like, is this guy like a serial killer? Like, he got a nonviolent first offense cocaine possession charge. Let's just not get it twisted. And so I was like, that seems a little extreme. But the arguments went back and forth. I didn't even know what was going on because I didn't understand anything about these issues back then, like most people don't, until it affects them and or touches their family. And the judge was an old white-haired guy. I thought, this guy's never going to rule in our favor, but he banged the gavel down and said the motion is granted and sent the kid home. And I was like, wow, I guess I have a superpower, like, I mean, if I can do that, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a lot of that. And so I learned very soon after that from an article I read in Rolling Stone magazine about an organization that had recently started called Families Against Mandatory Minimums. His case was a mandatory minimum case. I joined their board, so I became the first board member there. And then soon after that, I saw something on TV about an Innocence Project case. It was a brand new organization back then, but they had gotten this guy off of death row who was scheduled to be executed, and they found the DNA, and Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, the founders, and they went and got this guy not only not to be executed, but they got him free. And I was like, that's the craziest shit I've ever seen. Like, I didn't even think about the idea until then that we execute innocent people. Well, I mean, I don't think we should execute anybody, but that's beside the point. Innocent people, I was like, so I just marched down to the Innocence Project offices and said, I'm your guy. I don't know what you need to be done, but I'm doing it. I'm going to do whatever you ask me to do and then some. And so I joined forces with them back in the mid-90s. And that's what, that's the origin story right there.
Wow.
How many people would you say at this point, since your involvement in the Innocence Project, that you are cases that you just worked on, because we know that the end result is not always what we want, but you still have worked on cases and given people hope and light, and given their stories light. So how many cases would you say at this point it's been? That
I've worked on personally?
Yeah, you. Mm-hmm.
I've lost count a long time ago. It's hundreds, but I have no idea how many.
Do you know how many people have actually been freed as a result of your work?
I don't. I mean, it's direct and indirect. I mean, I've even had the experience last year of having dinner with a number of people, and one guy, his name is DeMarco Carpenter, and halfway through dinner he says, "You got me out of prison, right?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." It's like, and that's okay. I mean, like, I didn't mean that to be offensive. It's just
that you do work and
I have enough of
them
now that I can forget some of them, and that makes me sleep well at night. And he's a fantastic human being, DeMarco too. He's really been through it in Oklahoma, and over 20 years wrongfully convicted and really targeted by the police there in ways that goes beyond the typical wrongful conviction case, if there is such a thing. So I've lost track a long time ago, and I've also worked on the issues to try to free people on a wholesale level, working with organizations like on a wholesale level. I mean, on a macro level.
I
lots
get
of
what
people.
you're saying. Yeah.
And so indirect involvement in things like the Obama clemencies, but also in providing funding for organizations like Civil Rights Corps, who have freed hundreds of thousands of people or prevented that many people from going to jail in the first place by changing the laws, right? By preventing people from going to jail just because they're arrested and too poor to make bail, right? Which is unconstitutional. It's a violation of the 8th and the 14th Amendments. So, those, of course, the macro changes are more important. The micros are more meaningful, right? I mean, the individuals, when I'm able to help somebody in a hopeless place, trapped, just one of 2 million people in prison in America, trying to get their voice heard, that feels better because the other one's a number, but I don't know any of those people. But I'm glad that they're with their families where they belong and not in one of these horrible.
It's disrupting the system
jails
when you're doing that work.
And by the way, before we go any further, I got to give you some flowers because I was reading a great book the other day, An Inconvenient Cop.
Edwin Raymond.
I mean, everybody should read this book.
It is such a good book.
Everybody. If you can't read, get somebody to read it for you. I don't care. Just get this book. An Inconvenient Cop by Edwin Raymond. I met him at the UJC event.
Right.
So there's a connection there again. And there's your name with big stars around it. I mean, coming up just, at the right time, in the right place. But with, coming from a place of just conviction and courage, that I can only say, I'm very honored to be here with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Edwin was a breath of fresh air. And it wasn't just him. I mean, it was Edwin and the other officers, including one woman who really suffered and continues to suffer, who, came to us and said they needed help. And like you said, I feel like, we got involved. Edwin now he's run for office. He's now an author. He's doing so many incredible things. And when I look at him, I don't necessarily see my role, although I know that I did play a role in helping him to get his voice out there. But what I do feel is we disrupted something that was happening within the system that people didn't really want to talk about. So, and sometimes that's all you need is a brave soul like an Edwin to come forward that helps to make your case that we've already been trying to make.
It pushes you a little bit,
right?
Because a lot of times when you do this work, it gets a little disheartening, right? Like you don't see people like Raymond, that come from the inside and able to help you push the work that you're doing. So when you get somebody like that, it gives you another fresh breath of air. And you're like, okay, now we got some people, and he's bringing more people. So, shout out to Raymond, shout out to the work.
Yeah.
So you're here today. You're here today, and you have this case that I've been seeing you talk about.
Yeah, you're like crazy over this case.
And when you hear what's going on with this case, you see why it's actually crazy. So give us a synopsis of what's going on in this case.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing us back to that because that's really the reason why we're here. This is a case of a guy named Pierre Rushing who's in prison in California. He's been in for about 13 years, and it's an Oakland case. And, I deal with wrongfully convicted people all day, every day. My phone doesn't stop ringing. We cover them on the podcast. I advocate for them in governor's offices, anywhere I can get attention. Speak with lawyers and DAs and press and media, you name it. But Pierre's case stuck out to me. And so much so that when I was offered, there's a law firm called Greenberg Traurig, and a lawyer there named Jordan Grotzinger had heard my podcast and reached out and said he wanted to get the firm involved pro bono in a case, one of our cases. That's one of the biggest, best law firms in the country. So we went for a hike, we went for lunch, whatever, and we sat down. I gave him 5 that I thought really, really deserved, they even stuck out above some of the others, and that's a crazy standard because some of these wrongful conviction cases we have are absolutely mind-blowing. You sit there, you cannot believe that these people are in prison. But Pierre stuck out, and so, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably have a loved one, or maybe they are themselves wrongfully convicted because it's a scourge out there. But so So Pierre's case, we decided that was one that we could really make a difference. He was a promising young man growing up. He had a career, a burgeoning career in hip hop music. So I guess I connected on that level as well, because he, seemed like he might have been on the verge, and he was wrongfully arrested for a murder. It was crazy. I mean, it must have been the very last iPod murder, but somebody was murdered over an iPod. If you can imagine that. Some people listen, what's an iPod?
Right, what's an iPod?
Anyway.
Google it.
And these 4 guys had rolled up. Someone had gotten out, thought somebody had stolen their iPod. Maybe they did, I don't know. Jumped out of the car, and there was a confrontation, and somebody was shot and killed. Now, the witness who came forward was an admitted drug addict. He admitted that he was using crack at least 6 times a day, among other drugs, and he gave some description of a guy in a certain colored hat, a certain colored car. Pierre happened to have a car of that color, and maybe he owned a hat, whatever. It was like some ridiculous circumstantial stuff. And when the police first interviewed him, they asked him, where were you at 3:45 on such and such day? 3:15 or 3:45. And he told them, but he thought they meant in the daytime, what they meant in the nighttime at 3:35 a.m. When he was actually at his grandmother's house with his girlfriend. And his girlfriend is now a government official. Like, she's a serious person, right? Not that anybody, that shouldn't even necessarily matter, but she was not abusing crack 6 times a day, right? Yeah. She's a credible person, is all I'm saying. And so he gave the wrong information. He said he was celebrating his birthday, whatever it was, and that turned out not to be true. So then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, he's lying." But all it was they didn't tell him AM or PM. And first of all, that's always crazy to me, because oftentimes the police will go to you and say, "My son, where were you on, October, 3rd?" Yeah. And you'll be like, "It's January. I don't remember where I was yesterday at this time, right? I mean, did I get Chinese food? I don't remember what I was doing." But did they expect you to know this? And for many of us, for many of these cases, it was before the days when we had a calendar on our phone.
To
we
know
look it
where
up
you
and say
were,
what we might have been doing, although you might not remember anyway. Maybe not everybody has to write everything down. So that was how this thing started going in the wrong direction in the first place. But he did have an alibi, and there was no physical evidence connecting him to the case in any way. The car was taken in by the police. They actually found the car. And they tested the front seat for biological evidence. There was no evidence that Pierre was ever in that car or that he knew the victim. And they never tested the back seat to see if any biological evidence in the back seat. We're always shedding, you touch things with your fingers, you're leaving fingerprints, you're shedding DNA, all the time. Hair could be there. Not that these are perfect sciences, but they would have given an indication. But we're now trying to get those things tested to further prove. Now this witness is recanted, by the way. And also important that the shooter was identified as a guy named C, street name of C. Now Pierre's name is Pierre Rushing. He don't even have a C in there anywhere, and he's never been known as C. And now it seems pretty clear who C actually is. And so this case at this point kind of comes with instructions where if they chose to, they could go and interview the witness. They could test the backseat of the car.
And the judge would do that.
It would have to come from the DA's office.
Right, to give the order.
So the DA in Alameda County is a woman named Pamela Price. She's I believe a good woman. I think that she is, a DA who, ran on these type of issues of getting justice in these cases, and not just tough on crime and all that other nonsense that we hear all the time. So I think we have reason to believe that she is someone who would, take a case like this seriously. When you have the type of attention brought to this case, and where you have a firm like Greenberg Traurig that's probably put $1 million in legal time into this and has disproven every aspect of the case that the state made, you'd think that it would. I think you'd think that the jail doors would just fly open and be like, okay,
Because
we got this one wrong. Yeah, we got this one wrong. Let's send this guy home. He's been here for 13 years. Mr. Rushing, we're sorry. We made a mistake. Here's some compensation. Move on with your life.
That's it.
And by the way, that's an important issue, compensation. We talk about that on my podcast all the time. Is that most of the people that are exonerated never get any compensation, but we hear about the ones who do. But anyway, that's what I would like to see happen. And I believe it's a relatively straightforward process that the DA's office, and I get it, they're swamped, they have a conviction review, there's a lot of cases, there's a lot of Pierre Rushings out there, okay? And I'm not saying because I'm advocating for him that he should be
the poster child
push everybody else out of the way. But I do think that this case is pretty clear cut at this point, and that if they were willing to just have one of the people in their office go and take the steps that we talked about to do these interviews and testing, that
where's the car that it could be tested again?
I think it's still
evidence.
Yeah, it's still in evidence somewhere. I don't know if they take the seats out or what they do, but one way or another, I know that evidence is available. To be tested. Yeah.
So is there a motion that you put into the courts? Like, where's the legal process at this point?
The courts are a very poor remedy. Jordan Grotzinger, the lawyer from Greenwood Traurig, went and argued in the appeals court. The problem is that the standards are so virtually impossible to meet, because the appeals court effectively has to decide that no other finder of fact could have possibly ruled the way this judge or jury did. And so that means that
fighting against the self, pretty much.
Yeah, they
get to say, yeah, we did the best we can, and we know we did,
and
so
that's it.
We don't have to do anything.
No checks and balances.
And that all goes back to the horrible, EDPA Act in 1996 that the federal government passed, where they made it virtually impossible for people to appeal their sentences because they wanted finality, right? In this country, finality is valued in the criminal legal system as opposed to justice. And so they made it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Just when you hear what he just said, finality is more important than justice, right? Like, they just want to get it over with. They don't care if they got it right or wrong. They just want to say, okay, we're finished with this. And that's crazy. Imagine your life being held to somebody's criteria that all they want to do is finalize it. They don't want to get it right. They don't want to look through and say, did we do this, everything right? They just want to say, we finished it. That is crazy.
It's hard to understand it. I mean, I think for most of us, it's incumbent on us to get good prosecutors elected in every city and county that we can. And so
so politics matter.
Politics matter. Voting matters. I know people are tired of hearing that, but think about this in local elections, especially. Your vote really matters. DA races, not that many people vote. Because
you could be in Atlanta, and a crime happened. Where is this other place you said he's in?
Somewhere in the middle of Florida. Yeah.
In Florida. Not even be there. So because the reason why I want to zero in on this is because there are people who believe, and I'm telling you, I have some older family members that would say, if you stay away from problems, you stay away from, you won't get yourself in any trouble. Those things won't happen to you if you stay away. But I don't know how much further you could be from Florida where crime takes place than Atlanta. And still somehow you find yourself in these situations. But not enough people understand it until it happens to them, which is what we don't want.
Listen, we've got a number of those cases. I've been working on a case of a guy named Temujin Kenzu in Michigan who was over 400 miles away when the murder took place in Port Huron. And there's no question that is true. And yet the state came up with a theory that he went to a local airfield. He was broke as a joke, right? He lived in a trailer, had no access to money of any kind. That he went to a local airfield and found a pilot just hanging out who was willing to fly him round trip. for
round trip.
for free, while not making any record of the flight. Also would have had to buy gas because the planes there are too small to make that round trip. But there's no record of the flight, there's no record of the pilot, there's no record of the gas, and yet the state presented this as evidence because they knew they knew he was in this other city at about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and they knew he was back there at his karate class at noon. And it's an 8.5 hour drive with no traffic each way, and the murder happened at 9:30 in the morning. And yet he's been in prison for 36 years, and he's still sitting there. He's a white guy. And then you have Pedro Reynoso. I interviewed Pedro Reynoso on my podcast. He was convicted of a double murder in Philadelphia when he was in the Dominican Republic. And he has the passport stamps and the travel documents and video, and he signed a land deed that day, and he attended his son's baptism, and he has a dozen witnesses, including a priest and a cop that was down there at the baptism. And you sit there and go, how is this man in prison?
Wow.
What are you talking about? Did he fly in and out with nobody noticing? Like, from a foreign country on the same day? Come on now, this is like, but the thing is, once you get caught in that quicksand, that legal
They
quicksand,
say all the time.
you
It's
sink.
the easiest thing to get into and the hardest thing to get out of.
Exactly, and that's what we're here for. That's why, listen, I think, I'm so glad to be here talking to you about the Pierre Rushing case and these other cases. It's why I hope people will listen to the Wrongful Conviction podcast, because when you do, there will be a case that you'll hear about that will touch you, that you may want to get involved in some way. Or you may hear something, one of the legal experts that we interview, that might impact you or somebody you love. And most importantly, I hope that people will listen, because you're going to someday get that jury duty notice, right? But none of us likes that. You get that thing is sitting on your table, you're like, oh man, I'm so busy, I don't want to go. But you gotta go. You gotta go. And when you go, I want people to
Take it
understand.
Bring your
seriously.
experience, bring the understanding,
But don't tell everybody.
No, the thing is, you have to bring a reality into those courtrooms, man. I sat on a trial, right, with people that I knew didn't even understand what was going on from my community. Just didn't even understand how you can actually be railroaded for something, how you can actually be accused of something, and they didn't have any evidence or anything, but just somebody said you did something, and that was enough. That was really just enough, and I understood, like, damn, it's nobody from where I come from that has seen this happen and be like, nah, you gotta have more than that. Ask certain questions that I would have asked, like, well, if you saying you did this, then why not this, and why didn't this happen? Like, there's nobody there, so we have to be very, very intentional about jury duty and voting and all of those things. But I know you got to go soon. But I want to ask. So what can we do right now? What is in the process of what's going on with Pierre Rushing? Is there, like, what did you do? Are we waiting for a DA? The evidence that you have, has it been presented to the DA? Is there a meeting set for?
Or do we
need
to raise hell?
Do we need to raise hell and call out people? Like, because this doesn't even make sense that this man is still sitting in jail.
No, it makes no sense. The case is completely collapsed. It never was much of a case in the first place, but now it's completely collapsed. He's an innocent man. I can say that unequivocally. And I think what we can do is we can make our voices heard on social media. My Instagram is It's Jason Flom. It's ITS Jason, and the last name is FLOM. But you can. I'll put instructions there.
Pierre Rushing.
Justice for Pierre Rushing. You go to justiceforpierrerushing.com. Thanks for shouting that out. And you can write letters to the DA. Those actually work, believe it or not. They get enough letters. They start to go, oh, this is like, they talk about it in the office. I know you think it doesn't matter. It does matter. You can call the office.
We're gonna have our show. We want to make sure that we put the office and everything up so that people can contact and let them know that this is just crazy and they need to, move expeditiously. A man's been sitting in jail for 13 years.
And I encourage
people
to be respectful. If you call the office, be respectful. Remember, the person that's answering the phone didn't do anything wrong. You know what I mean? So you might be angry about this case. I'm angry about it, but it doesn't help. Just be dignified, be respectful, but make your voice heard, because your voice matters. And going back to the voting thing, and I will touch on jury duty one more time, but on the voting thing, these DA races have real consequences. I was very proud to have been involved with Jason Williams's successful run in Louisiana, and he freed over 300 people the first year he was in office. Now, 6 of them were wrongfully convicted. The rest were convicted by non-unanimous juries, because Louisiana used to have a non-unanimous jury thing. You could go to prison for the rest of your life on a 10-2 jury verdict.
Used to have
yeah.
Disruption.
No more. They were one of the last 2 states, Louisiana and Oregon. It's finally
Oregon
yeah.
doesn't have it anymore
Nope,
either.
it's all
So
gone.
nowhere
Yeah.
across
Supreme
the country.
Court,
Wonderful.
Supreme Court said no, they can't do that anymore. So, but they didn't make it retroactive.
And
So,
what Supreme Court was this under?
this was only a few years ago, so
So-
I don't remember exactly. I think it was before
So they did
Trump?
make it
before the
retroactive.
Trump
So
appointees
people
came in.
who've been convicted of it still locked up. It just
Still
can't
locked up.
happen again.
Yep. So Jason went and said, "Hey, I'm going to look at these cases like what you were suggesting with our Manhattan DA,
Yeah.
who is a good man and I believe is going to
Alvin,
is starting to
that's
really
right,
hit his
yeah.
stride. I hope he's going to start. More and more people are going to be coming home.
Yeah, I love Alvin Bragg, by
Yeah,
the way,
Alvin's
as
a
a
good
friend.
man, and
that
Eric-
doesn't mean I agree with him all the time, but I
No.
love him as a friend.
Understood. And
Yes.
Eric Gonzalez has been
Oh,
doing
we
good
love
work
Eric.
in
Same,
Brooklyn.
same.
Got to shout Eric out. He's,
Darcel Clark in the
Darcel.
Bronx.
Eric has picked up the mantle from Ken Thompson, and I have a lot of respect, and I like him personally, and I have a lot of respect for the work that he's done. I think he's, as good of a DA as we've had in New York State in a long time.
And shout out to our dear sister, Lushawn Thompson, who is the widow of Ken Thompson, and she is invested, actually helping to work on, continuing Ken's legacy. But I do want to say one thing is that I noticed, and I'm sure that there are people listening who are like, we just going to wait and see how long it takes Tamika to ask this question as we close. We talk, every name I heard you say was a man. What is happening with women who have been wrongfully convicted? Because one of the things we talk about all the time is that there are so many women in the system that don't get visits. There's no one paying attention to their cases. It's just
No one's
not
pushing,
the focus. Women, incarcerated women. And there are more people like Topeka Sam and, of course, the work Jamila has done and others who are trying to, Lucinda Cross, that are trying to bring attention to women who are incarcerated. But what do you think? And I think that sometimes with DEI, if that applies here, we have to have a very specific focus when there's not been much of a focus at all. So just wondering if there are women that you all are engaged with.
Absolutely. Just a few that come to mind. Melissa Kaljuzinski in Illinois, totally innocent, a daycare worker. A child had a fall and tragically died, but she had nothing to do with it. She's one. I mean, a number of women who I'm working with who are out but still not exonerated, like Kiara Newsom, Tyra Patterson, and there are a number of other cases. We don't have time to go through all of them that we're involved with, of women who are in prison now. In fact, we just released a podcast this week on a case of a woman named Nikki Zinger who was wrongfully convicted of murdering her mother. And it's an obvious case. Patty Pruitt in Missouri, who's 74 years old, has been in for half of her life at this point and is absolutely innocent of killing her husband. Women, I'm so glad you brought it up. My girlfriend, Kalia Ali, who is the daughter of the great man who would have been 82 years old today, she's going down to spend 4 nights in prison in Texas. She's going to highlight the issues of women in prison, spend a night in the maternity ward, a night in hospice, a night on death row, and a night in general population. And when it comes to women, it's important, and we can close on this or whatever you want, but in America, we have less than 5% of the world's population. We have 25% of the world's prison population. But what people don't talk about is we have 33% of the world's female prison population. So we lock women up at a rate that is about 8 times as high
growing.
as the rest of the world, as the rest of the Western world. Like 8 times as high. Do we have women in America that
That's
are
just
inherently
different.
evil
Right,
or something?
right,
Of
right.
course not.
Right.
I mean, I say it sounds so ridiculous to even say a thing like
No,
that.
but it's a question.
But yeah, that has to change. And these women, the majority of them are moms, and we know how that ripple effect takes place, right? We know what's going to happen with those kids. They're going to end up in foster care, and then the slope gets real slippery from there. And it's a national disgrace, and it doesn't get talked about enough. So I appreciate you bringing that up because.
Well, as we close, I really want to ask a personal question that is something that I struggle with. And that is the idea that we can't help everybody. You want to, but you just can't. And I wonder how you deal with that. At Until Freedom, our organization, we hear all the time, well, how come, why Breonna Taylor? In fact, just over the recent King holiday, another mother who is grieving the loss of her child, which was very different from Breonna Taylor's situation, but her grief turned into her attacking other people. Why not me? We've dealt with that many times, families, communities, people challenging us. And one of the things that I've had to accept is that I can only do what I can do. And it's almost like a therapy session that I have with myself regularly. And I wonder, what do you do to deal with that anxiety of being unable to get to every case?
I box, try to take the aggressions out on a punching bag, because it is frustrating. I mean, we can't help everybody. I wish I could. If I had a magic wand, I would turn the whole country upside down and shake about 90% of the people in prison out, at least, and we would have no problem. There would be no increase in crime. There would be no detriment to public safety. But unfortunately, I don't have that magic wand. I think all we can do is shout it from the rooftops. Tell 3 people today. Tell 3 people to watch this show or listen to this podcast you just heard. Spread the word. That's all we can do. We got to build an army out there. We need an army of Tamikas and Mysonnes and Jasons to get out there, and that's how we're gonna have to make this change.
Well, we want to thank you, Jason, for the work you do. For gracing our podcast. Hopefully, Pierre will be home soon.
We'll have him on the show. We'll have him here.
Exactly. We'll be able to sit here and celebrate him being free. We're going to make sure that we get that information, that we can write respectfully, and request that the DA looks at this overwhelming evidence and does the right thing by Pierre, man. So thank you for coming on. Go to Wrongful Conviction. Make sure that you tune into Wrongful Convictions podcast and hear about all of the cases and the people who have been wrongfully convicted. We're going to start out with Pierre, and we're going to move down the line and get all of them home.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jason Flom.
Jason Flom.
I hope you enjoyed that very informative interview with Jason Flom. It is justice for Pierre Rushing all day. And we want you to join us in our efforts at Until Freedom, our organization, to ensure that we continue to lift Pierre Rushing's name and force the system to work as it is supposed to in his favor.
That's right, because they're quick to lock you up, but it takes them hella long to let you out when they're wrong. So that brings me to my I don't get it. Over the last few weeks, the internet has been going a lot crazy. A lot of people I know have been having these real crazy conversations, especially men from the hood, as we call. And there's been dialogue about beefs and what's disrespect and whose ego and all these things. And the conversation always leads to some level of violence where they quote unquote is crashing out. And there's a lot of people celebrating this crash out, right? And I think as I got older and wiser, I see things from a completely different lens. I was in the school giving a presentation to these young kids. I think they were 9th and 10th graders. And I showed them my Boycott Black Murder video, and we having a real deep discussion about it. If you haven't seen that, go to my YouTube channel and watch that. But we were having a discussion about it, and they loved the video. We just having dialogue. And I was like, and Angelo was there, Angelo Pinto, one of the co-founders of our organization, Until Freedom. And he asked the kids, what do you think are things that lead to violence? And a kid stood up and he was like, because, you got to prove to people that you ain't scared and you ain't soft. So when something happens and you get mad with somebody, you got to show them that you're not soft. And I was listening to that. Then I was listening to the internet where, a couple of people that I knew were having interviews and they mirrored that same conversation. People that's in their late 20s and 30s. And the common theme is that over this perceived ego and this perceived having to prove that you're not soft or that you're not scared, that they were willing to completely crash out. Jeopardize everything.
Crash out means jeopardize.
Jeopardize everything. There was a dialogue about Young Jeezy and Gucci Mane. And, Gucci Mane has said something about his friend who died. And he was saying, and it was disrespectful. About
Jeezy's friend who died.
During their verses. And the way the world was split was confusing to me, right? I listened to Jeezy, and Jeezy was a grown man. He said, basically, I'm not even going to get into that because the reality is people watching us up here. These kids are trying to figure out how they solve conflicts. And I'm not going to feed into what you're trying to do, right? And some people thought that meant he was soft, right? Because he wasn't willing to completely throw his whole life away on a moment and on one of the biggest stages he's been in a long, and he had an opportunity to teach and do something that was growing. It was people that perceived that as soft. It was people that were saying that they would throw everything away at that moment to show somebody that they was tough. And perceived toughness and perceived ego, it's so many people in prison. I did time in prison, and there's so many people who have taken that same mentality that doing life in prison. And every one of them says if they could change, they wouldn't have did it. So my thing is, why do we go down an alley that everybody who's went down that same alley is saying it ain't nothing down there but death? And we're willing to say, fuck that. I'm going to show you that I'm tough. I'm going to keep on doing the same thing that ain't never get nobody nowhere before. But I'm going to die tough. And I'm going to leave my family. I'm going to do all this shit because I need you to know that I'm not scared. Or my ego is big and I'm not scared of you. And I'm willing to crash out. And that shit really, like, I've really been pondering that in my head for the last few days because I hear these conversations. And I also remember when I was young and I had those conversations. And we really, and the thing is, it only in our culture because I don't see it in no other culture. Like, we willing to die for shit that don't matter. Like, we willing to die over shit that really don't matter, about what somebody thinks about me or what somebody says to me. How can I give you more control over my life than I have over my life? If you can say something that could force me to give up my freedom in my life, then I'm not even in control of me no more. So I really want you to understand that I don't get that. At this point in my life, I don't know how I rationalize it as a young kid, but as a young kid, you think as a young kid, right? But this is something that's celebrated in our culture, this detrimental. And I'm going to give one more example, and I'm going to leave it alone. You go to my page, on my Instagram page, they're having an interview, and it's a kid from Chicago talking about some people that's died in hip-hop and in the beefs that's supposedly big gang members. And the dude was like, they need to be sliding, they need to get some guns, and they need to go ride on the people who did that. And the dude was like, why are you telling these kids that dumb shit? These people are listening to you, and you investing that dumb shit into kids. That dude shouldn't go slide. He should be home with his family. He got kids. His baby mother is already dead. Half all of his friends is dead, and you telling him to go do the same destructive shit that already got everybody else killed. That shit ain't smart. Ain't nothing cool about that. That you tell him to slide. My grandmother's in them streets where you tell them to slide. My kids is in them streets. So when they slide and they hit the wrong person like they always do, you're responsible for that. You know, so it's like, I want us to really start thinking, man. That's like, I think the emotional intelligence and the lack of thinking in this culture right now, it's really leading to our detriment. And you know, and I just want us to really just take the time, take 2 seconds before you allow your emotions to supersede your intelligence, before you throw your whole life into a fucking dumpster because somebody said something to you that you didn't like.
I think that is a perfect way to end our show for today. I would say that in order to understand where we are, you have to know where we've been, and to know that we are people who were captured, enslaved, and trafficked, and then enslaved again on American soil, where our men did not have power to protect the community, to protect their wives and their children. That mindset has in a lot of ways developed and sort of stemmed from there, that, you know, I'm never going to allow anybody to demonize me or to do these things again. And we just have to retrain the ways in which we use it. Because we only really have the power to inflict pain on our own. And I think that has a lot to do with it. So as we are out here teaching young people, we need to make sure that we bring the history to them so that they can learn. That's why we keep pushing. You gotta go see the movie Origin. It's probably on some streaming network by now. Go get it and watch it, because in that movie you get a chance to learn how we have been demonized, how so many communities have been demonized. And once you understand it, then you will know more about why we react to things the way we do.
And I agree. I just want to say one thing. There are certain things that I'm willing to give my life for, to protect my family, to protect people I love, to those are things that I believe are honorable things that you say, okay, I'm willing to completely crash out to make sure that the people I love are safe. But not for my ego because you said something to me. Not because you said words to me. To protect myself and protect my family. Yeah, those are things that as men, we supposed to put our selves on the front line for. But like Jay-Z said, don't die over the block where your mama lived that you don't own. Don't die over the gang beef that you wasn't even born for when it got here. Like, let's not die over shit that don't make sense, right? Because when you lose your life trying to protect your ego, who's taking care of the people that you're supposed to be protecting?
That's right.
And with that said, brings us to the episode. With that said, it brings us to the end of another episode.
TMI.
TMI. And that's Tamika and Mysonne's information. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika's not going to always be wrong, but we will both always, always be authentic.
Peace, y'all.
Salute.
That's how we own it. That's how we own it. That's how we own it. That's how we own it.
Check out the video version, TMI.
Every single Wednesday on iWoman.tv.
That's how we own it.